and welcome to The Ring, Euronews' brand new debating show, broadcasting from the European Parliament here in Brussels. Once a week, two elected members of the European Parliament go face-to-face on some of the most pressing issues of our time. This week, we zoom in on the topic of rearming Europe and ask the crucial point, who will pay?
Europe wants to rearm fast. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, EU countries have been pouring billions into defense. The upside? A European Union that is more secure and less dependent on the US. Supporters argue that a bigger defense industry also means more jobs and a stronger geopolitical role for Europe. The downside? The cost. Critics say that every euro spent on tanks and drones is €1 less for schools, hospitals, or climate action. So the question isn't just how much to spend, but how to spend. Can Europe find a balance?
But can Europe find a balance? That is the question we have for our contenders. Let's meet them.
Taraus, Estonian army general and member of the European Parliament for the EPP Centre-Right Group, Vice President of the Security and Defense Committee, a cheerleader for defense spending, he has stated, "What we need is for the market to provide the necessary quantities of ammunition, missiles and various defense equipment." Martin Širdevan, co-chair of the Left Group in the European Parliament. He strongly criticizes shifting money away from social programs to defense. His verdict on the European Commission's Rearm Europe plan was blunt. Investing billions in war will not make the world safer or more peaceful, he said.
Taraus and Martin Širdevan, welcome to The Ring. The idea here is to give our viewers a taste of your debates inside the European hemicycle, so I hope you feel right at home.
Yes.
Taraus, let's start with you. You say the market should be providing defence equipment, but with tight budgets, who should pay?
The nations should pay.
But nations are broke.
Nations aren't broke. They have been able to spend money on many other things, for example, climate change. At the current moment, where the war is imminent in Europe, we need to get stronger because Europe has not spent enough in the last 35 years. We are not talking about arms race, we're talking about fulfilling the promises we have made ourselves many years ago.
But where is that money going to come from?
Well, as Rio said, for now it's coming from the public budget. And this is, of course, a problem because every euro invested into the arms manufacturers will not go into, for instance, hospitals, schools, digital infrastructure, or the necessary transition of our industry. So this is a huge problem. I would suggest that we take the money from those who have it, that we discuss new own resources for the European budget, and that means that we tax the rich, that we tax multinational enterprises, and that we also discuss something like a digital taxation for big tech companies.
Would you agree with this idea?
No, not at all. I think the defense is still prerogative of the nations and not the European Union as a whole. So the nations themselves need to fulfill their own promises. And if somebody tells me that it is not possible to build up a social state and invest in the defense, that's wrong, because history has shown us that German Federal Republic of Germany, during many years in the Cold War, was able to build up one of the most capable social systems in the world. At the same time, they invested 3.5% on the GDP on defense, because it is necessary and people understood why.
What about the idea of defence Eurobonds, Martin Širdevan?
Well, first of all, we don't have a Marshall Plan today for the European Union, European defense, because you were referring to Germany. That was the case back in the day, so there were huge investments coming from the international community to Germany. But this is not the case today, so we need to really think about how to raise money. And you mentioned Eurobonds for the arms industry. I don't think that this is a good idea, because we are already on the way to take on more debts via giving loans to the member states that they can then invest into the into military purposes. So I do not think that this is a good idea to go on following this wrong path.
I think we are derailing the discussion here. It's not about to spend money on healthcare systems or defense. It's about defending Europe, because we see that an aggressive Russia is willing and able to use conventional military weapons against countries. And Putin has very often declared that he wants to rearrange the security system in Europe. And if we are not ready, if we don't fulfill our own taken tasks, then we are not able to defend Europe as a whole and separate countries of it.
And Martin Shedrin, that is a fair point, what Rio Terrace makes there, because just think of Brussels just the other day. The airport was shut down for 30 minutes because of drone incursions, allegedly Russian drone incursions, buzzing over Doel, the nuclear plant right by the port of Antwerp. Brussels had to call the UK in order to come and help. It wasn't able to defend itself in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. That was supposedly a Russian drone. We don't know that yet. But I'm not defending Russia here. Maybe it was Russia, maybe it was the third country, maybe it was a privateer, who knows. But obviously Europe is tested, also in its military capabilities. So, of course, we need to do something in order to discuss how to defend the European Union, how to defend the member states in case there would be a violation of international law, meaning an attack against one of the member states. This is not the case so far, so we can take time, but just a little bit to discuss how to spend wisely the money that we have at our hands into defense. And a new security order does not only depend on defense capabilities, it also depends on how we implement international law, how we strengthen international organizations. And this is something that I'm really missing, especially in the discussion of the Conservatives.
Reaction to that?
Now, I agree that there are all other mechanisms there, but the one and the only which really is understood by Putin is if you have more weapons than he has. So it is very easy for me, very plain. If you are strong enough, then he will start to negotiate. If you are not strong, he will laugh about you, as he has done throughout the years in the last two decades.
And are you pleased with the trends lately? We've seen defence spending has gone up in the past few years, Rio Terrace. According to Eurostat, between 2021 and 2024, the total defence spending of the EU countries rose by 37%, whereas when it comes to social protection, it only rose by a tiny bit. How do you feel when you read this data, Martin Sheirdwan?
Yeah, well, I think this is completely out of line, this development. I mean, Rio referred to Russia and the threat Russia poses to the European Union. This is always the explanation why we have to spend more and more and more money into our defense capabilities. But I think, actually, that we really need to discuss what that means. In the end, it means a new way. What is your
solution, then, to protect Europe? Imagine if there was potentially an invasion, if an EU member state was invaded.
If we have a look at the numbers, let's take a look at the numbers. NATO is spending 9 or 10 times what Russia is spending for its defense and military capabilities. Even the European NATO member states spend 4 times what Russia spends. So there is no rational explanation why we should again spend more and more.
But what about Russia's nuclear arsenal? They have 5,500 nuclear...
They have that for decades now. That is no new development, right?
But how can we deter against that threat for you?
The problem is that we have been spending less and less and less throughout the last 30 years. It's not about we are spending more. It's about starting to spend at all, because the defense expenditures, if you look from 1990 to 2020, then you will see how much we have lost, how big period of time we have lost, because we have not invested what we promised ourselves. It's not about 5%, 10%, it's about just 2%. It's exactly the same amount of money that Estonia saved introducing the digital government system. So,
is it possible to find the balance, do you think?
It would be possible if you would look for other resources. And as I said, we need to discuss the introduction of new own resources. And now we have the discussion with the multi-annual financial framework, which allows us to look at new own resources. And this, for me, of course, means that we need to redistribute wealth in the society if we have those challenges in front of us. And we need to tackle them. I agree, we need to tackle the challenges.
But that's not going to happen.
We need money.
That's not going to happen. I mean, the budget talks have already kicked off in Brussels. We can see how torturous they are.
The strength of the European Union Union lies also on competitiveness. And if we start to introduce new taxes and distribute wealth, which we don't have right now because we are not in the very good economical situation, then we will have less money to spend on defense. So we need to make Europe competitive again, which it's not right now. At the same time, we need to invest, and not the European Union, but the countries need to invest what they have promised to their defense.
But then, Rio, really, you need to mention that, because you're not doing that, then I will do it. Each euro invested into arms manufacturers means that there is no money left for social cohesion, for instance. And this will cause a new wave of austerity in Europe, which in the end means that those who have the least suffer the most. Working class families will pay for this arms race that you are advocating for.
Well, that conflict is not existent. We see in Estonia, the government decided to spend 5% on the GDP on defense, and the Estonian mothers want the mother care as well, but the people are supporting it by 80%. Because they understand the urgency of the situation, and you don't need social services in Russia, because as we see in Donetsk, Russia does not give you social services. He kills your people, your children, and all so on. So it's.
But this is not Russia. This is the European Union, and people are used to relying on.
This is not a discussion.
But our citizens expect us to invest into public services and social security systems, and they are rightfully doing so.
And make sure that the country exists.
Yes, I mean, they do exist.
At the moment where it is attacked by Russia, it is not forgiven. Yeah. And that is the discussion about.
Well, let me stop you there, as it is now time to take the gloves off. Now, I want to give our viewers a real taste of the European Parliament chambers, where MEPs fire hard questions at each other. That means Rio Tera's and Martin Širdevan will now have the opportunity to challenge each other directly, just like you do in the hemicycle. So, Martin Širdevan, can you start, please?
Rio, we met before, and you often say that this war in Ukraine will be won on the battlefield. Now then, since Trump engaged in whatsoever diplomatic efforts, and even Ursula von der Leyen changed her language, do you still believe that this war will be won on the battlefield while Russia is advancing, or do you agree with me that we need to ramp up our diplomatic efforts to end this war?
Well, I have always been in the position and think that dialogue is the best way, but dialogue needs two sides. If one side is not willing to talk, you can do whatever you want. Putin will not come back to the table if we are not strong enough. And right now, Putin does not think we are strong enough, and we are not supporting Ukraine in the numbers we really need to do. Yes, the war is won at the battlefield.
And Putin invaded a country, and it seems like he's literally getting away with it. Rio Tera's, it's your opportunity now to address the question to Martin Širdevan.
Yeah. The response to that, are you really sure that the known war criminal, Putin, is willing to come to the negotiation table in the situation where he has not listened to any discussions beforehand? And why you think so? And should we sit with the war criminal at one table?
Well, we need to end this war. This should be the objective here, not judging that war criminal. I agree, he is a war criminal, but we need to end this war. And therefore, we need to discuss how
the war criminal is legal.
Please let me answer. Please let me reply. So, and therefore, we need to end this war, and therefore, we need to think about how to do it. And I think there are several options on the table. First, engaging in a more coordinated diplomatic effort, like including also and taking on board China, who wields a huge influence over Russia, and also India. Russia is economically dependent on India, so we need to take them on board. And then, of course, we need to target the sanctions. We have a sanctions regime in place, but we need to be more precise in targeting the industrial military complex of Russia.
Do you endorse the fact that Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, and the Slovakian Robert Fico have the lines still directly open to Moscow and Beijing?
Do I endorse that Trump invited Putin to Anchorage, Alaska? Well, what can I say about that? He did that, and he kicked off, as hard as it is to admit for European politicians, he kicked off a process that might in the end eventually lead to an diplomatic end of the war. We will see if this happens or not, but he kicked off something new.
Would you agree with that?
It's naive. It's naive to think that Putin comes to the table all attempts of Trump, of von der Leyen, many presidents have called, everybody has called him. He doesn't care about it because he feels that he's strong enough to go on with the war.
Time for you to address your next question to Martin Širdevan.
Yeah. Putin announced that he wants to rearrange the world order to same what it was 1997. So you coming to the discussion table, would you really think that NATO should withdraw from the Baltic states, from Finland and Sweden, etc., from Poland even, or even from the Eastern Germany, in order to please Putin and bring him to the discussion table?
But Rio, I never said something like that. I never said something like that. But what I'm proposing is that we work on a stable international security order. And of course, NATO plays a role in that. But we need to take into consideration security guarantees for many political actors now, like China, like India, like Russia, like European Union, and of course the United States. But that means to rethink a stable international order, and we are far from that because the European Commission doesn't play any geopolitical role.
Your chance to address a question now to Rio.
All right. So we already touched upon the question of financing our expenditure for military purposes, and you are advocating for using public money, the public budget, which, as I already explained, will lead to austerity, a new wave of austerity. Would you agree with me that we need new sources to raise money if we want to tackle our challenges both at international level and internally at the social level?
No, I think we should invest more wisely. We should try to cooperate more. We should try to make our defense industry more effective so that for every euro we will get more in back, but never, I would agree with more taxes on European citizens.
No, not on citizens.
He's referring to tax the rich.
Tax the rich would.
But the rich, as far as I know, the rich are the citizens of Europe as much as the poor.
Well, then let's tax US, American and Chinese big tech companies.
Would you be in favor of that?
Well, I would say competitiveness is not won by taxes. It's by investing in the new technologies and by making ourselves stronger, not try to get money from the others.
Look, we have heard now from Martin Širdevan and Rio Terrace, and I'd like to bring in a new voice now. The EU Council President Antonio Costa has been making headlines of late for his ambitious statements on the future of European defence. Speaking to EU heads of state and government recently, he said, to build the Europe of defence, we need efficient political oversight and coordination. And he said our defence ministers need to play an increased role. Martin, how do you interpret this statement? Is it the first step towards a European defence union, or may I add an EU army?
Yeah, well, he hasn't been very clear about that, but what I think he is right about is that we really need to coordinate better. So for now, we are just discussing imaginary figures that the European Commission came up with based on no assessment of whatsoever we really need.
Is there an appetite, Rio Terrace, to coordinate? I mean, the EU and NATO together, and industry, of course, together, because they're all competing.
Yeah, well, I think NATO has put requirements on the countries of members of NATO, which most of which are part of the European Union. So we have the requirements, we know the numbers, but yes, I think the coordination between the ministers of defence is important in order to enable Commissioner Kubilius to work with them together, better solutions for our own defence.
And where is the market hedging its bet? Because we remember a few years ago, everyone in Brussels was discussing the European Green Deal as the growth model. Now it's all about defence.
We should be balanced. We should not focus in one and then another. We should do both. We should be social state also, I agree.
Well, this week, I mean,
it needs to be balanced.
This week, COP30 is taking place. How can we rearm Europe by 2030 and also go green?
This is not going to happen with the proposal that the Commission just made for the multi-annual financial framework for the EU budget. It's focusing solely on armament, rearmament Europe, and not focusing on the Green Deal anymore. Your party family wants to get rid of the Green Deal, and it's also putting into question the social state of Europe.
The biggest threat to sustainability of Europe is if Russia attacks European countries.
And again, it's always Russia.
It is. It is today backed by China. Not believing in naive thinking that China will be on our side. Never. A communist country will never be on European side. because we are democracies and we are defending here democracy.
Okay.
The reason why Russia attacked Ukraine in 2022 and 14 was because Ukraine wanted to have an association agreement with the European Union. It's not about NATO, it's about free will of a free country.
It is time now to take a short break here on The Ring, but stay with us. We will be back very, very soon with some more Political Punch. Welcome back to The Ring, Euronews' new weekly show. I'm joined by MEPs Martin Širdevan from the left and Rio Terras from the European People's Party. And the idea here is to bring the European Parliament's debates to your couch. So what about you? What do you think about the EU's drive to pump up defence? Well, according to EU data, 78% of Europeans are indeed concerned about the EU's defence insecurity in the next 5 years. That's 8 in 10 Europeans. How do you feel about that?
Well, I can understand that. Obviously, the international order is in turmoil, and of course, we need to provide also to our citizens stability, and that also means defense stability.
What you're saying is very similar to what the head of the EPP said this week. He said, alone and naked we stand in a world of storms.
Yeah, well, it only shows that I'm right. We need to spend more in defense and try to do it clever.
What do your voters think?
Well, our voters, my voters back home understand the necessity. We understand it already since 2010, as Estonia was spending 2% of the GDP on defense, as we promised to NATO. Today it's 5+% which we invest. But the Estonia's problem with 1 million people is that our 100% is too small, and we need to make sure that countries like Germany, France, Spain, and Italy spend the same.
You're praising, of course, your country of Estonia, which is obviously your job as an MEP, but it's a much smaller country. Other countries like yours in Germany, much bigger challenges in this area.
Yeah, well, the 5% target of the NATO means that Germany has to spend hundreds of millions into their military, and this is, of course, a huge burden both for the public budget, but also for the citizens. And this is debated very controversially in Germany, and I do not agree with that, because the amount of money will only lead to cuts in public services and social security, and this is unacceptable.
So citizens are not really on board with this plan?
80% of the people in Europe.
Well, they are not that clearly in Germany.
They are concerned.
They are in Germany also. It's not that German public is against defense spending. That's not true.
I think they're concerned until when it comes to the money coming from their pocket.
Well, that's always the case, and that's why our democracy works. You elect people who take decisions for you, and then next time you elect other people.
That is too easy. That is too easy, Rio, because that means actually that public money, meaning taxpayers' money, meaning our money and the working class families' money, goes directly into the pockets of the big shareholders of the arms manufacturers. This is not that easy, and people are discussing that. We have to be honest there.
It makes Europe stronger. But can you name a single situation where a world power without military backing has changed history?
But Martin Širdevan is right. The arms industry will get much richer, but will ordinary citizens benefit too?
We should use more SMEs. We should get the money.
Then we should tax them. Then we should tax them.
Yeah,
but you don't agree with that idea.
No, we should not tax the big ones, but we should make
tax
sure
the small ones.
Make sure that the money comes to the SMEs, to the small technology companies, which right now are disrupting the battlefield in Ukraine. We need to get the big money, not to the big primes, but to the SMEs who are creating working space, who are creating jobs for the ordinary people who can earn more money. The money comes back to you if you are clever enough.
Is it wishful thinking, do you think, Martin Širdevan, this idea to rearm Europe by 2030?
No, not really wishful thinking, because there are huge investments on the way, and I agree with the idea that we need to be capable to defend ourselves. But as also Rio now confirmed, we need to spend the money more wisely in order to address the new challenges, cyber attacks, drone warfare, etc. And we have to be very precise in our assessment what we need as a society, as European society, and that assessment hasn't been done yet, and I do completely disagree. That's why I do completely disagree with the proposals on the table.
And Rio, how are you convincing other countries? Because, of course, Estonia is very close to Russia. You feel the threats every day. Countries, though, like Spain, Italy, Greece, they have other issues on their minds, like migration, for example.
Well, the war criminal Putin is helping us always. If I have difficulties to convince somebody, he would attack somebody. And the events in Brussels airport recently show us that everybody is endangered. Everybody, from Spain to Portugal, everywhere. And we need to understand that the migration is not an existential threat. Migration is a threat to our way of life, to our economy, but war is an existential threat, and that is the difference.
Final reaction to that, would you agree?
Yeah, well, I really don't get that. I mean, how can you say that migration, you put it all in one basket? I mean,
you put it all in one basket.
No, you put it in one basket. There is no clear political line. Why do you bring now
I was not
migrants?
putting it all in one basket. I was just highlighting the challenges and the issues facing other member states. But it is now time to move on to our fifth and final round. Are you ready? Now it is time for something different. I'm going to ask you a set of questions and I require a yes or no answer. Is this doable?
I hope so.
Well, let's find out.
Let's find out. Should the EU develop its own nuclear deterrence strategy? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Can the EU ever be a military power? Yes or no?
It is.
Yes.
What about military conscription? Is this a good idea? Yes or no?
I have my doubts.
Conscription is the only way for small countries. I don't know about big ones.
Should EU countries spend at least 2% of their GDP on defence?
Well, it depends on what we actually need. So
Yes or no?
I would say, let's look into it.
Yes, of course. Not even more.
Is Russia's threat big enough to justify the current surge in spending?
No, Russia is not justified to do anything at the moment, I think.
Yes, it is.
Will Europe ever be military independent from the United States? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Should the EU funds be used to subsidise weapons? Yes or no?
Yes.
No. It is not allowed by the European treaties, by the way.
Even though it is on the cards.
Yeah.
Should taxpayers accept higher public debt to fund military build-up?
In separate countries, yes.
No.
Should EU defence projects prioritise European companies only, even if it raises costs? Yes or no?
No, at the current moment, we need to take whatever is available in the world.
Same question to you.
Yeah, we should prioritize European industry, yes.
And what about drones? Is the future of warfare on drones?
No, on people.
The future is on peace. Yeah.
Final question. Have you agreed with anything that Martin Širdevan has said here?
Yes, that we need to be smarter in spending on defence.
What about you?
Well, no, I have my difficulties to find something that I agree with that you just said.
But at least we have brought you together here on The Ring. Martin Širdevan and Rio Terrace, thank you so much for being on The Ring.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching. If you have a comment for us, do reach out, thering@euronews.com. That is our email address. Tell us how you feel about the EU's focus on defence. Thanks for watching and see you soon.